What if I told you there's a simple strategy that takes less than 15 minutes per client, costs absolutely nothing, and is the easiest way to generate consistent free listings every single year? I use this myself for years, and every January I would send this out, and every January I got multiple listings from it. There's also an agent in my group who closes around 50 deals a year. And when I asked him what his number one listing generation strategy is, he said it's this exact system. By the end of this video, you're not only going to have everything that you need to implement it yourself, but I'm also going to walk you through a live step-by-step example with a complete breakdown of the numbers on my iPad so that you can follow along and know exactly how to do this immediately. Before we get started, I also created a completely free guide for you that is a checklist of everything that you need to do, and most importantly, a template of the email that you can send your clients so you can simply copy and paste what I've created for you and not have to overthink this. If you want access to the free guide, just click the link in the description and you can download it. But without further ado, let's get into it. So here's a question for you. Your past clients probably check their 401k or their stock portfolio at least once a month, maybe even once a week. But their home, which is almost always their single largest financial asset, gets completely ignored until they decide to move. But what if you became the person that changed that? Instead of being just an agent who shows up when you need a commission, like most, what if you position yourself as their real estate CFO or chief financial officer, the person who helps them understand and manage the wealth sitting inside their walls? That's exactly what the annual home equity report does. So what is this? It's a simple one-page document that you send to past clients and warm leads every year, showing them exactly how much equity they have in their home. And here's why it works so well. You're not asking for anything. You're not pitching. You're not saying, hey, are you thinking of selling? You're giving them something of value. When someone sees they have $200,000 or more in equity, the conversation changes. They stop thinking about interest rates and they start thinking about possibilities. That's when they reach out to you. So let me show you exactly how to do this. The whole system breaks down into 3 phases. Phase 1 is the audit. This is where you gather the data. It takes about 5 minutes. Phase 2 is the build, which I'll show you on my iPad. This is where you create the actual report with the numbers. Another 5 minutes. And phase 3 is deliver. This is where you send it with a short personal video. I'll talk about that. That's where the magic happens. 3 to 5 minutes. So audit, build, deliver, less than 15 minutes a client. And when you do this every year for your past clients and warm leads, you actually create a system that generates listing conversations on autopilot. So now let me walk you through each phase, and I'm going to use realistic numbers in an example so that you can see exactly how this works. All right, phase 1, the audit. This is where most agents overcomplicate things. They think they need perfect data. They get stuck trying to figure out exact mortgage balances or exact property values. But here's the truth. You don't need perfection, you need relevance. An educated estimate is more valuable than most homeowners have ever thought of on their own. And so here's what we're gathering. First, you need their original purchase price and the date they bought it. You already have this from the closing if you worked with them previously. Second, you need to estimate their current mortgage balance. Now, you probably don't have their exact mortgage payoff, which is completely fine. Use a standard 30-year amortization calculator based on when they bought it and their interest rate, and that'll get you close enough. Third is pull 3 to 5 recent comparable sales within proximity of their property. These are your market value anchors. And fourth, do a quick public records check to see if there were any permits pulled for any major updates, which, for example, maybe they added a pool, renovated the kitchen, because this affects the value. That's the audit. It takes 5 minutes of data gathering. And now let me show you how to turn that into a report, which is phase 2, building the report. Here's where agents make another mistake. They think they need fancy software or a 10-page PDF with charts and graphs everywhere. Wrong. The best annual equity report is 1-page, simple, visual, and something they can understand within 30 seconds. So let me walk you through exactly what goes into this report using a realistic example based on actual market data. Okay, so let's walk through this example step by step so that you understand how the numbers work. As you can see here, we've got the original purchase price back in September 20th of $420,000 with a down payment of 20%, which is $84,000. So the original loan amount is going to be, as we could see here, $336,000. And if the interest rate was about 3%, they've done since September 20th of 2020, if you were running this in December of 2025, they would have done 64 months of payments. So this is going to allow you to get a rough estimate of the payment principal down, which is about $44,000, meaning that their current mortgage balance is approximately $292,000. So just looking at this very simply, looking at the basic numbers. So now what we're going to do is look at the current market value. This is, again, where we want to use a range. You do not want to give a specific number. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in more depth, but the range is important because if you give them a specific number, that gives them enough information to where they believe they can make an educated decision of whether or not they care, whether they want to reach out and talk about, potential opportunities or whether it's just not in the right fit for them. But if you give them a range, what's going to happen is they're always going to wonder, are they on the upper end of the range or are they on the lower end of the range? So we can look and say, okay, conservatively, based on the current market, the property would be worth anywhere from $515,000 to $555,000, which is that important range. Really critical because this is going to be your secret to opening up dialogue in order to get the listing presentation, which again, this works wonders. So now we have the equity breakdown, right? So if we take a look at this, we have the current value, $515,000 to $555,000 with the approximate mortgage balance of $292,000. That means the net equity would be anywhere from $223,000 to $263,000. Now, how do we arrive at the equity gained since the purchase? All that you're going to do is look at $223,000, which is the current net equity, and we're going to subtract this $84,000 here, minus $84,000, which is going to be that $139,000 that you would see here. And the same thing goes for getting the $179,000. We just look at the $263,000 of the current equity. We're going to subtract the amount that they originally put down, the 20%, and that's going to give us this value here. So these are the very simple numbers that we can use in order to give them that range. Now, this equity gained since purchase is going to be your secret in order to open up that dialogue, because sometimes when the market has gone down, like I'm about to share with you, they're going to say, well, there's no opportunity for me. It's not a good time. I'm going to sit. I'm going to wait until it comes back up. But that's because they're in the present. They're looking at the market today, not since purchase, which is the critical component here that's going to open up potential opportunities for you to get sellers who are ready to move now. Let's look at the most important part. Now, transparency, honesty is critical here. We can look at the year-over-year performance. So I always like to do this because it's going to give a bit of a snapshot where you can actually build further trust, because the majority of agents just say the market's always great or some very generic positive approach to it. But people want reality. They want honesty. They want transparency. So we can look and say, okay, based on it being 2026, the market's down approximately 1% from the peak. And if you share that number with them, they're going to have so much more confidence in you instead of fluffing it up or ignoring this information. But this is where we reinforce the positive. So it says, okay, it's down 1% from the peak, but there's $139,000 to $179,000 in positive equity since the purchase. Now, what potential options could that lead the seller with or the homeowner with? Well, you can look here and say, okay, well, that gives you enough to have 20% down on a $1.2 million property. Now, typically, they're not going to go from a $500,000 to a $1.2 million property, but that gives them a bit of insight as to what could be done. Also, you could take that equity and you could buy an investment property. Maybe they want to build the long-term wealth. Maybe they've got kids and they want to secure a financial future for the kids. Now you could say, hey, we could take that equity and we can put it towards an investment property. Or maybe they bought a property that has a little bit of an older style to it. And through conversation with them, you know that they had plans to renovate the kitchen, for example. Well, they can do a major renovation and still have $100,000 over in equity. So I always like to include this just because it gets the wheels turning. It's not saying here's what you should do, but it's saying here's what you could do based on all this extra money. Because the thought process, when they're so fixated on the narrative of the news and what they see on social media of the market being down, it being more difficult right now, is that they hear the negative story because that's what gets headlines, that's what gets clicks, unfortunately, in the disgusting news that we have access to. And they're going to listen to that. Fear tactics. But if you come in and say, yeah, the market is down 1%, but you've gained this equity since then, and you give them some options to get the wheels turning, now it opens up a little bit more conversation. I always recommend additionally adding in some personal insight. Now, what is personal insight? This should be based on you knowing them and being able to personalize it a little bit. So personal insight could again be that major renovation because you knew that they were considering doing that. Or personalization, which is probably the most valuable part, is picking something special or unique about their property and adding it in here and saying, okay, maybe their property has a pool. Okay, cool. Well, we could say, yeah, the market's down 1% overall, but properties with a pool are actually the same or up 1%. Or maybe there's no change at all and it hasn't gone down at all. But adding in some personal insight so that they know that you've either A, listened to them, or B, you're speaking specifically to their property that you understand, calling out these special and unique features of their property in personal insight and saying, here's how this applies specifically to you, that again is going to open up more dialogue. But this is a very simple mathematic process where, again, this is just elementary, middle school math, where we're looking at the opportunity, but the range here is critical. So many agents make the mistake of giving one number and then just say, this is what your property is worth. But when we give the range, that's where they're going to say, where do I fall into this picture? And I would like to know more. When they would like to know where they fall into that range, whether it's the upper end or the lower end, as you're going to see in a second here when I give you the follow-up strategy, which is critical, that's where you're going to be able to get into their property because you're going to say, hey, I actually don't know where you fall in that range. I need to see the property, to see the current condition, to see any updates that you've made, and be able to walk you through which side of the spectrum you might be on the upper or lower end of it so that you can have some idea as to what you could do with your property or how it would perform in this current market. So now let's go back into the presentation and dive a little bit deeper so that you know how to compile this report and be able to send it to them, but also have that critical follow-up strategy. Now here's why the range matters so much. When a client sees their home is worth somewhere between, for example, $515,000 to $555,000, the natural question is, well, which is it? Where do we actually fall within that range? That question is your listing appointment. You're not asking them to sell. You're not pitching anything. They're coming to you asking for more information. That's the power of this approach, and you've already got the report. Now let's talk about how to deliver it. That's where we go to phase 3, the delivery. This is where most agents completely drop the ball. They create the report, they email it out, and then they wonder why nobody responds. The problem isn't the report, it's the delivery. A PDF sitting in someone's inbox gets ignored, but a personal video gets watched, and this does wonders. So here's what separates this from everything else that other agents are doing, and it only takes 2 to 3 minutes. You're gonna record a quick walkthrough video of the report. Now, I recommend using a free software like Loom in order to record your screen. So you're gonna download it, just record your screen with the report open and talk them through it. So if you want an example, you can say something like, hey, Maria and Luis, I was looking at the Austin market this morning and wanted to send over your 2026 equity report. Based on what's selling in your neighborhood right now, you could be sitting on somewhere between $223,000 to $263,000 in equity. Honestly, That number jumped out at me. You've built a lot of wealth since you purchased it in 2020. So take a look at the attached report and let me know if you want to talk through what this means for your 5-year plan. That's it, 2 to 3 minutes. You're not asking them to sell, you're offering to help them understand their options. And now you send that video along with the PDF using a simple email. And this is in the template that you can download for free. So subject line, your 2026 home equity report for the address. The email body is very simple. You tell them most people track their investments monthly, but ignore their largest asset, which is their home. You mention that you put together an annual equity report. You include the link in the video that walks them through the PDF of a report that's attached, and you let them know that you're available if they want to talk through the numbers. If you want this exact template, again, I put together the guide, the email scripts, and the checklist, and you can get that using the link in the description. Now, you're not done. And this is the most important part. You follow up 48 hours later with a text. Keep it simple, say something like, hey Maria, I just wanted to make sure that the equity report didn't get buried in your inbox. No rush at all. I'd love to know, was the market value higher or lower than you expected? And that question gets responses because it's an open-ended question. Because everybody has an opinion on what their home is actually worth, and that reply is the start of your listing conversation. So truthfully, whenever I send these out, I typically hear back within 24 to 48 hours, and most responses are almost always the same. I had no idea how much equity I had, or could we talk about what this means for us, or maybe even we've actually been thinking about making a move, and that is where your listing appointment comes into play. You didn't even ask for it, they came directly to you. So let's make this as simple as possible. Every year, here's what you do. Step 1, audit, spend 5 minutes, gather the data, purchase price, estimated mortgage balance, recent comps. Step 2, build, create a simple 1-page report with the value range, equity math, and 1 personal insight. Step 3, deliver, record a 2 to 3 minute video, send the email, and follow up with a personalized text no later than 48 hours after you've sent it. 15 minutes per client, that's it. So if you do this for your past clients and warm leads, that's about 12 hours of work if you have about 50 of them spread across a week or two, and you will generate listing conversations every single year. Don't overthink the technology. Don't wait until you have the perfect data. Don't create some complicated 10-page report that nobody's gonna read. Simple wins. Start this week. Pick 1 past client, somebody that you closed within the last few years, pull the data, build the report, record the video, send it today, and that's where you're going to start to generate the easiest, consistent free listings every single year. Now, if you don't have a business plan for this year, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So if you would like to see a complete walkthrough of how to create the perfect business plan that's gonna make sure that you hit your goals every single year with a free workbook included so that we can walk through it together, check out this next video. I walk you through step by step. You can download the template, and this is gonna make sure that this is your year where you smash your goals.